Hey Prob and Stats, this is the video for the Chapter 5B practice test. A lot of really good stuff in here, so make sure that you ask your teachers if you have questions. Question number 1, the first quartile. So when you're talking about a box plot, the first quartile is right here. Remember that each piece, and this is going to pop up a lot in this practice test, each piece of that box plot is 25%. So, that being said, let's read the options. The point where 50% of the data lies below that point, that would be the median. So that's not it. The halfway point between the min and the max, nope, that's not it either. Here's the min, here's the max. The halfway point would be right here, so it's not B. The halfway point between the median and the max, that would be right here. So that's quartile 3, so it's got to be this last option. So let's look at what it says here. So it says the halfway point between the min and the median. That makes sense, because here's the median, here's the min. Halfway between those two is quartile 1. And remember, it's halfway percentage-wise. So if it's a skinny graph or a wide graph, it's still going to be halfway between. So there's our good answer right there. Number 2, which of these is not part of the 5-number summary? The median is a part of it. The minimum is, the maximum is, quartile 1 and 3 is, the IQR is not. So this one, it's kind of related to a box plot. It's Q3 minus Q1, but it's not part of the 5-number summary. Number 3, which of the following does not help measure the spread? So the spread is, we had 2 main ways of doing that. IQR is a measure of the spread, so is standard deviation, so is range, but the mode is a measure of the center. Remember, that's the one, it's the most frequent data point. So just telling me which one happens the most often doesn't tell me how spread out the data is. But IQR tells me how far Q3 is from Q1. Standard deviation is a number that you should know how to get in your calculator. That's for how spread out it is. Range is just the max minus the min. So those all describe how spread out the data is. Number 4, a distribution has a median of 10 and a mean of 6.3. The distribution is most likely. So the mean is smaller. The mean is less than the median, which means that the mean would be to the left of the median. It's all about where the mean is. So this would probably be a skewed left distribution. If they're roughly the same, it would be symmetric. If the mean is bigger than the median, then it would be a skewed right. Question 5, which of the following do we want to use to measure center and spread when our data has outliers? So outliers affect mean and standard deviation. So the good measures of center and spread, if we have outliers, is the median and the IQR. So that would be option C. The mean and the standard deviation, they get messed up by outliers. So anything that has standard deviation or mean in it is not a good answer. Number 6, if the graph of a distribution is skewed to the right, that's a picture of it, the mean is going to be to the right of the median. That first answer is true. Our median would be somewhere in here. Our average would maybe be somewhere in here. But if it's skewed right, the mean is to the right. If it's skewed left, the mean is to the left. If it's symmetric, they're in the roughly the same location. Okay, pay attention to these ones because we haven't practiced these in a while. The 5-number summary for scores on a history exam is shown there. This part's going to be really important. 96 students took the exam. So we want to know how many students had scores between 71 and 80. So here's just a really rough sketch of what we're looking at. So we have 93, 80, 71, 45, and 15. Remember that each piece in here is 25%. Okay, that's going to be important for us. So we want to go between 71 and 80. So that's from here to here, if you can see what I'm coloring in. Okay, so 25% of the people got between 71 and 80. There's 25% of the people in here because that's between the median and the quartile 3. So what we need to do is we need to take how many people took the exam, and we have to multiply it by the percentage of those people. So 96 times 0.25 gives us the amount of actual people in between those two. Oops, typo. 96 times 0.25 is 24. So there's 24 people that scored between 71 and 80. So let's try another one like that. How many students had scores above 93? Well, what's 93? 93 is the max. That means nobody got higher than 93. So 0% of the people had higher than 93. So 0 is the answer for this one. Let your teacher know if you have questions on those ones. Number 9 is matching which graph goes with which city. So you see the picture here, Atlanta, Bismarck, New York, San Diego, Phoenix. Okay, we're looking at the letter, which letter here goes with which city. Okay, so maybe it's a good idea to look at this median column. That might help us, because if you look at the median column, for example, 70.5, that's a pretty big median. I should be able to find that on the graph. Here's 70, so and here's the median of this graph. So I know that B must be Phoenix just by looking at the median. I could do the same thing and look at the smallest median. The smallest median is 45. So let's look at where is there a small median. So here's about 45. So this graph here has a median at about 45 if I were to kind of go down. Okay, so that means I know that C has to be Bismarck. All right, and then we can just kind of use context clues for the rest. You can keep using medians if you want. 55 is about here. So that must mean that New York has that. Oops, I put it in the wrong spot though, didn't I? New York must be A. Whoops. New York must be A because that's where that median lines up. And then we have D and E left, and one of them is going to be Atlanta, one of them is going to be San Diego. So the one thing, so I've used this one, I've used this one, and I've used this one. So one thing I might notice with the rest of it is Atlanta has a much smaller minimum. So if I look at the minimum here, it's at about 35. So which one says that for our minimum? So our of the ones we have left, it looks like maybe this minimum is maybe even a little bit closer to 40. So the minimum, and if you look at the maximum as well, that's up close to 80. So if I'm looking at the numbers here, E has a minimum of 42 and a max of 78. So that looks like it goes more with Atlanta. And then the one that's left is San Diego. And that makes sense because the minimum for that one is 56, which is right about here. And then we have 71 for our max, which is right about here. So that's what I would go with for this one. So just to recap, we had that A was New York. We had that B was Phoenix. We had C being Bismarck. We had D, San Diego, and E, Atlanta. The city with the maximum average monthly temperature. So that's just the city that had the biggest average monthly temperature, but these are all average monthly temperatures. So which one had the biggest maximum? So the biggest maximum is down here with Phoenix. They had a maximum of 94 right there. So Phoenix had the highest highs. The city with the largest spread, so that's the most spread out one. So which one had the biggest spread or the longest box plot? I would say probably Bismarck here. That one looks like it's pretty lengthy for the box plot. So 70 minus this number way down here. So Bismarck had a spread or a range of 71 minus 8, which is 63, which is a pretty big one. So 63 would be our biggest spread. So Bismarck, that's our biggest range, but it looks like that one's the most spread out. The one with the smallest, the one with the smallest IQR. So the IQR is the box here in the middle. So we want to look for the smallest box. So the smallest box up in this picture, I would argue, is San Diego. That's the smallest box in there. So they have the smallest IQR. So that's reading a graph with multiple box plots and comparing. All right, so we have to review one like this here with looking for a specific average. So they're going to give you some test scores, and then what does the person need to average a certain amount? And we have to figure out how to solve that. So the way we do that, let's read the question. Kathy B has the following scores on her first 5 expo exams: 75, 70, 68, 55, and 50. What does she need on her final to average 65% on her test for the whole course? There's going to be a total of 6 tests because we have taken 5 already and there's one more left. So what we want to do is we want to start adding up the numbers that we already have. What we want to do then, that's 5 tests, but there's one more test we're taking, which is the final. I don't know what she got on it yet. That's what the question is. Then we divide by how many numbers that is, counting the x. That's 6 things. We set it equal to the percentage that she wants. That was 65. And then we solve from here. The first step is to multiply both sides by 6. So when you do that, what happens is you cancel out the 6 on the bottom, on the bottom left. So we're multiplying both sides by 6, and that gives us 390 on the left. At the same time, it might be a good idea to add up all the numbers on the left: 75, 70, 68, 55, and 50. If you do that, then you end up with 318. Well, then subtract both sides by 318. You get that x has to be 72. So she needs a 72. Kathy needs a 72 on her last test in order to get a 65% test average. Number 14, 50% of observations will be at or above the median. This is true. The median is the 50% mark of the data. So half of the data will be below the median, half will be above. 15, shoot, I'm just seeing now that I should have taken that one out. Dot plots are for graphing categorical variables. This is false. Dot plots are for numerical variables. So it'd be, this is a dot plot. But shoot, we didn't talk much about that. Okay, so sorry about that one. I'll actually take that one out of the quiz for today. All right, next ones. First thing you want to make sure that you do is put these numbers in order from smallest to biggest. So go ahead and do that right now. Skipped ahead a little bit. So now these numbers are in order. We know that there's 10 of these. There's 10 people that we randomly asked. We want to find the 5-number summary. Remember that the minimum and the maximum is something you should never get wrong. The smallest number and the largest number. Now, the median is the next thing we want to get. There are 10 numbers here. So what that means, if you cut 10 in half, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So between the 5th and the 6th number, we have our median. So we know that there should be an equal amount. Right here, there's 5 numbers. Right here, there's 5 numbers. So with data sets with an even amount of numbers, the median is in between 2. So the median is right there, which is halfway between 2 and 2, which is 2. So the median is 2 this time. Now I'm left with 5 numbers beneath the median. So the middle number out of 5 is 3. Again, there's 2 numbers here, 2 numbers here. So quartile 1 is there. And then quartile 3 is here. Of the upper 5 numbers, that third number would be the middle. The third number would be the middle of 5. Okay, so there's my 5-number summary. Checking for outliers, you first need to figure out the IQR, which is Q3 minus Q1. So 3, whoops, sorry about that. 3 minus 1, which is 2. So there's my IQR. We need 1.5 times the IQR. So 1.5 times 2 is 3. This is the number that we subtract from Q1 and add to Q3. So Q1 was 1. So 1 minus 3 is -2. That's the smallest number that we could have before we have an outlier on the bottom. Q3 plus 3 is 3 plus 3, which is 6. That's the biggest number we can have before we have an outlier. So we don't have any numbers smaller than -2. We don't have any numbers bigger than 6. So this one has no outliers. Okay, moving on. Number 18, a large standard deviation means the data has a large spread. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with median or outliers, and bias is not something that we talked about at all this chapter. Standard deviation measures how spread out the data is. That's what it does. All right, so again, put those numbers in order. That it'll happen in just a second on the video, but the first thing you would want to do is put those in order. So now those 25 numbers are in order. So this box plot is going to be talking about the amount of years 25 teachers at the school have been teaching. So the minimum is 0, the maximum is 31. When you have 25 teachers, if you want to find the middle, you cut 25 in half. 25 divided by 2 is 12 and a half, which means there's going to be 12 numbers on either side of the median. So we're going to find the 13th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I should have 12 numbers here and 12 numbers here. Yep, looks good. So the median is 8. We have then 12 numbers on either side here. So if you want to find the median of 12 numbers, divide by 2, and that's 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The median will be after the 6th number. Same thing up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The median will be between 13 and 16 there. So the quartile 1 will be halfway between 2 and 3, which is 2.5. 2 plus 3 divided by 2. And then we have 13 and 16, and we're dividing that by 2. 29 divided by 2 is 14.5. The way that you'll get the mean of the data is adding up all 25 numbers and dividing by 25. If you do that, you get 8.88. The standard deviation is something that you should know how to do in Desmos or on your calculator. So same thing, you can type all 25 numbers up in the calculator and you get a standard deviation. There we go. So you should be able to see on Desmos here, you type in the standard deviation part, and then here's going to be our answer, this 8.288. So I would probably round to the second 8. So I'm gonna write down 8.29. IQR is Q3 minus Q1, so 2.5 and 14.5. We're doing 14.5 minus 2.5, which is 12. Okay, most of those last ones are calculator things. That's it for this practice test. I believe, yep, that's the last one. So feel free to rewatch the video. Ask your teachers whatever questions you have. Thanks for watching.